but is worried about what could happen next.
As an Egyptian, I think what happened was good, or looked positive. But if it turns into chaos, that's not good, because my work will completely stop, as people will stop going out onto the street.
People outside the square are questioning whether they now have more to lose than gain.
There have been positive changes made in the country, so there's no need for people to stay in Liberation Square. I can't see how we can benefit anymore. People's businesses have stopped. There are a lot of poor Egyptians in this country who can't afford to stay home from work for more than a week.
But not everyone is so sure it's time for the protests to end. In this popular downtown bookshop, we heard mixed views.
The government has to do more, and the more they do, the more people will leave the square. No way to let them just go home. They will not go home, because I believe they have a cause, and the cause, maybe a lot of it has been accomplished, but it's not yet enough.
If it's going to have a positive impact, yes, I support this. But I'm really scared of the consequences, because we're not used to this type of revolution.
Statements by the Egyptian president and vice president have at their core a message to the people that an end to the Mubarak presidency would cause chaos in Egypt. As the protests continue, the demonstrators will have their work cut out for them if they're to keep the momentum going and stop the fear of change creeping back into Egyptian society.
Now we'll soon know the results of South Sudan's historic referendum. Electoral authorities there are preparing to announce the final tally of the vote later on Monday. Preliminary counts showed Southerners voted almost unanimously to split from the north and create the world's newest country. Well, our correspondent, Haru Matassa, joins us on the phone from Juba in southern Sudan. Haru, what more can you tell us about these results? When do you expect them to come out?
Well, Darren, the results will be announced at 7 p.m. local time in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. President Bashir will be present, as well as the president of Southern Sudan, Salva Kiir. He'll also be there. In the south, officials are planning for people to gather at a square and hear the announcement on a big screen. It's expected to be, we're expected to see a lot of celebrations from people here in the south. But of course, once that's done, once it's confirmed they'll get independence, the challenges ahead of building a new nation are going to be enormous. Darren?
We understand there has already been a backlash with Sudanese army soldiers refusing to leave the south. How bad is the violence there, Haru?
Well, there is a fear it could spread. What we're hearing is that members from the Sudan Armed Forces are made up of both people from the north and the south. They were given orders to head back to the north. The problem is Southerners within the SAS, the Sudan Armed Forces, don't want to head back in the north. They want to stay in the south, and they also want to keep their weapons. There's been some disagreement about this, and that's why the clashes are broken out. We're hearing that it has spread to some other places. People are trying to contain it, but there is a fear from officials here that it could spread further. Right now, it seems to be the death toll has only been between the soldiers. The fear, of course, is that if they go onto the streets in some of the towns they're in, then it could start affecting civilians. Darren?
Is the violence likely to overshadow celebrations in the south? I mean, the south has overwhelmingly, as the numbers say, voted to break away.
It is likely it could overshadow celebrations in areas where it's taking place, particularly in Upper Nile State. In places like Juba, for example, where it's far away from the clashes, people are expected to still celebrate. But it does highlight the enormous challenges officials will have to face, not just maintaining security within the region, especially when it becomes a new country, but also issues like poverty and humanitarian issues. They then have to deal with setting up an interim government, writing up a constitution, setting a date for new elections. If things like clashes are going on between soldiers, this could derail or disrupt the process of trying to form a smooth transition to independence. Darren?
All right, Haru Matassa there in Juba in southern Sudan. Haru, thank you very much indeed. Well, San Diego in California is home to about 3,500 people from Sudan, the third largest concentration of Sudanese people in the United States. Rob Reynolds went to meet some of those who voted in January's referendum to get their views on the future of South Sudan.
When Matthew Riek walks the streets of San Diego, he sometimes thinks of the long journey he endured as one of South Sudan's lost boys, orphans wandering through a war-ravaged wilderness.
We walked day and night. We were afraid of being discovered by the enemy and killed. And on the way, we did have some of us that were eaten by wild animals.
Matthew is one of about 3,500 South Sudanese in San Diego, part of a worldwide diaspora. In January, many in the community cast their votes in the independence referendum. Chul Tut runs San Diego's South Sudanese Community Center.
I was born in the war and grew up in the war, and now is the time to vote. That means it's going to be my last bullet for that war.
Refugees who came to the U.S. from South Sudan did not have an easy time. When Agnes Olwar arrived 17 years ago, America was far from what she had imagined.
When I got there, it was one-bedroom apartment with 5 or 6 guys, roommates, then plus me and 2 younger kids in one-bedroom apartment. And you can imagine how can we live like this? You know, there is a lot of drug dealers going around. There is a lot of shooting going around. So I tell my husband, I wish I'd go back, live in refugee camp other than, because I was scared all the time.
Now she's the proud owner of her own hairdressing business with a child in college. But South Sudan beckons. Even though they've spent years making their lives here in the United States, many South Sudanese say they're eager to return to their homeland and help build a new country.
When the peace comes, all those people will be going back to Sudan, and they will come with a skill, whatever the skill they have, to bring that nation. That will build up the country. I have to go back and do whatever I can for those people who need the skill.
Matthew Riek, who now has a master's degree in public administration, wants to work for the new government.
One could be thought of as crazy if you want to go back there. But for me, you know, having gotten to where I am today, especially with the education that I've gotten, I feel like, you know, I would do a disservice to my country where I was born, you know, if I don't go there and do something.
Agnes Olwar, too, is ready to leave the relative comfort of life in California for something deeper and more meaningful.
I really want to go back and help out. And also we have like a lot of family that has been scattered all over the world. I wish one day we can just go back and be as family one time. We can have a place we can call home.
Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, San Diego, California.
Tunisia's interior minister has suspended all activities of the country's former ruling party. That includes all meetings of the Democratic Constitutional Rally known as the RCD. And all party offices it owns have been ordered to close. Meanwhile, one man has died after being struck by a tear gas canister during a protest in the town of Kabylie. Locals are angry over the nomination of a new regional governor. And in the town of Kef, crowds burned a police station after officers allegedly shot and killed 2 demonstrators. State media says the clashes erupted after a policeman hit a woman during a protest. Security officials are concerned that recent violence is being organised by those close to the deposed president, Ben Ali, in order to undermine the interim government. Now, the Cambodian government says heavy shelling by the Thai army has caused part of an 11th century temple to collapse. The 2 sides have been exchanging fire across their disputed border for 4 days now. Both countries lay claim to the area surrounding the temple. In Myanmar, the party of pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi is expected to press for sanctions against the country to be continued. A party official of the disbanded National League for Democracy said the restrictions affected the government and its allies more than the general population. Wildfires have destroyed dozens of homes in Western Australia, and more homes are being threatened on the outskirts of Perth. It's the latest in a series of disasters to hit the country after widespread floods and a powerful cyclone. Animal rights activists have staged a dramatic protest against bullfighting in Mexico City. Around 750 demonstrators stripped down to their underwear, covered themselves in fake blood and stuck fake spikes into their skin. They're angry that bullfighting is legal in Mexico and that public funds are used to fund bullfighting schools and museums. They want politicians to ban the sport. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is due to appear in court in London. A judge is expected to decide if he should be extradited to Sweden. For more, let's speak to our correspondent in London, Emma Hayward. Emma, what are we expecting to happen in court today?
Well, we expect Julian Assange to appear in court in the next few hours at Belmarsh Magistrates Court, which is a high-security court in south-east London. There, his defence lawyers will argue that he should not be extradited to Sweden. This extradition hearing is penned for 2 days, but the lawyers will say that it's against his human rights to be extradited, that he's never been charged, so shouldn't be extradited, and that if he was potentially to be sent to Sweden, the big risk is that he could then end up in US custody. Now, at the end of tomorrow, we don't expect the judge to have made a decision, and even if he does, the Assange lawyers would have 7 days to appeal against that.
And despite the extradition hearing, Emma,